Hello there and welcome to another episode of Cutting Through the Bullshit. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie Snyder, and I am a high performance mentor. Through my unique blend of strategy, mindset, and intuition, I help men and women to cut through the BS in order to create the life and business they desire. So, we're in batch mode. This is episode 2 of today. Also airing, I think, on Monday next week. And we're going to talk about whether or not your relationship is based in fear or love and why it matters. So if you look at the energetics of these two separate words, what is the name of the book? There's a book that I'm reading, and the reason the energetics matter is for this very reason. So let me find the book, and then the problem is last week I was not grounded at all and started reading 17 different books literally on the same day. So here it is, The Miracle of Water. And if you haven't read this book, it's pretty cool. It talks about this guy who did this scientific experiment where he would take petri dishes of water and he would write different words on the petri dishes and then freeze the water. And they became some very beautiful or very disturbed looking water crystals, okay, based off of the word. So here's why this matters. Because the energetics of the word fear create a very different water crystal than the energy of the words love and gratitude. He found that love and gratitude in combination created the most beautiful water crystal. Frozen, right? He would freeze these. I forget what his actual verbiage was of it. And I'm not going to look for it now. But nevertheless, so one thing that he talks about here is the power of the words that we use for ourselves, because the human body is 70% water. So if we're speaking terribly to ourselves, then there becomes a disorganization, I think is what he called it, of the molecules of the water that moves through us. And it can create a whole bunch of health issues, essentially, okay? Short version of it, very short version of it, right? And so it matters because if we are showing up in a fear-based versus a love-based, our relationships are going to look very different, partly because of this scientific experiment, right? And I love the science behind it. It's really cool. So, The Miracle of Water. Find that book, read it, very cool. So, when it comes to fear-based, and I was reflecting on this yesterday because I have a teenage daughter. I love her dearly. And if you have teenage daughters, you know that their emotions can kind of be all over the place. And not always their fault, they're just learning, right? They are absolutely learning the emotions and when to follow them, when to kind of shelf them, right? Like just like many of us are even into adulthood, right? And so I was folding the laundry and thinking about this, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to respond to my daughter. And in what emotion, right? Was I going to respond with love, or I was going to respond with fear, knowing that I would be afraid of her reaction, essentially is how it is, right? And I remember becoming very aware of this a couple of years ago. It's a silly story, but it's relevant. I was sitting in my bedroom by the fireplace, and I noticed that my bedroom curtains were open, but I hadn't opened my husband's curtains on his side of the bed. There's 2 windows that flank our bed. And I looked at the windows and I thought, you know what, I'm going to open those curtains so I don't get fussed at. And then I paused. And I said, I don't want to do this out of fear. I want to do this out of love. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to open these curtains because I love my husband, not because I'm afraid of his reaction. And that's a very different way to show up in a relationship, whether it's with your kids, whether it's with your spouse, whether it's with your parents, whether it's with money, whether it's with whatever is out there, if you are showing up fear-based, that's what you're going to get more of. That's what you're going to end up focusing on. And it's going to become this charge in you, right? You're going to do it because you're afraid of how someone else will react. This is like the foundation of people pleasing. It is very fear-based because there's a fear that if you don't do the thing, people won't love you. Okay? And that eventually starts to wear away. You eventually get burned out from that and you're like, I'm over it. I'm done. Listen to a previous episode. I talked about the boundaries. You can have boundaries without pushing people away, and that was a previous episode, right? But if you can show up and do something out of love as opposed to out of fear, that has a very different energy behind it. And not only that, it's quite recharging, actually, when you do something out of love as opposed to out of fear. Now, not everybody will get it, and that's okay. They don't have to get why you're doing it in order for you to do it. And I was reflecting on this actually last night. The idea came to me because I had noticed, and I've mentioned this on previous episodes, that I'm changing the way that I relate to money. And one of those ways that I've noticed recently is that, and I just actually shared this on my blog post, I used to be afraid of spending money because I didn't know if it would ever come back to me. And what happens when you spend money out of fear is that you create more and more lack. Because fear is actually a lack emotion. Love is an incredibly abundant emotion. And when you do things out of love, you get more, there's just more of it. There's way more abundance. And so one of the things that I have gotten way better at is spending with love. So, and that's a very different way of spending, right? Like I remember going to the grocery store and being afraid that there wasn't enough money in the account for the groceries, or trying to figure out where the money was going to come from for this bill that just showed up at my door, right? And it created more and more lack. And so when I flipped the script on it and decided, you know what? Wealthy people, it's not a love of money, right? Like the money isn't the thing, the money is the tool. And when you're using a tool, you're grateful for it, right? Like imagine trying to build a house without a hammer and then someone hands you a hammer. You're probably going to be really grateful for that hammer. Even more so, right? If somebody hands you a nail gun, you're like, holy crap, you just saved me so much time and energy and money because now I have this nail gun to build this whole house, right? And that is an abundant way to think of it. And so if you are spending time, if you're making decisions out of fear, being afraid of the consequences, you're going to get different consequences than you probably want. Different results. I don't necessarily want to call it a consequence, right? But if you are acting out of fear, you're going to get a result that's fear-based. If you are acting out of love, guess what? You're going to get a result that is love-based. And love-based is going to be way more abundant than a fear-based reaction or result. So, what I really want to challenge you to do when it comes to your spouse, your kids, your friend, your money, whatever it is, next time you go to do something, ask yourself if it's rooted in fear or if it's rooted in love. Because they will feel very, very different in your own body, and they will be received very, very differently from the other person as well. So, if you have any questions, if you're interested in working with me, I do have private spots available. Activation sessions are probably the best thing that you could start with before the new year. This is a single 50-minute session where we we will just activate you. We will move you through whatever it is that you're feeling stuck on. It is a single session. You can then sign up for some longer term private coaching, but these single activation sessions are really, really powerful. So I love them. It's a great conversation. I will shift your perspective for sure for at least one or two things, if not more. So if you're feeling stuck and you're ready to get out of survival mode and start to thrive, please reach out to me. I do have a couple of these sessions available every week, and I would love to have a conversation with you. So I'm sending you lots of love. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And as always, be you, because the world needs more of you. Bye.